let's start with one of the most disgusting things that has ever come out of Donald Trump's mouth. And this is a dude who is one of the most despicable and deplorable human beings of all time. He, in no uncertain terms, because he's a fucking raging racist, shitted all over Somalis in general and Somali Americans living in Minnesota. I don't know what prompted this. I think because just there's been a lot of coverage recently about Little Mogadishu in Minneapolis. And I guess Donald Trump is just targeting this vile rhetoric towards whatever group he just most recently saw in the news. I will say, I'm not someone who likes to live in the past, but I really do miss a time when the president's biggest controversy was that he wore a tan fucking suit. And I'm talking about the drone strike the drone strike king Barack Obama, who I think it was in 2013 or 2014, wore a tan suit to a press conference and or to a briefing, pardon me. And the media, particularly right-wing media, dragged him through the mud because he wasn't wearing a black or a navy suit. Dude, who gives a fuck? Like, you really don't know how bad things can get until they're here. Like, we have a sitting president being outwardly racist. We're talking like Jim Crow style racism, 19th century style racism, just out and about. This group of people, according to Donald Trump, is inferior because of because of their fucking country of origin. It's truly astounding.
Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
I don't even know what to say about this other than to reiterate how vile and disgusting and unacceptable this kind of language is. If a friend of yours said this to you, or like a family member said this to you, and you didn't tell them to shut the fuck up, I don't know I don't know what's going through your mind. This is the kind of stuff where any adult in the room would tell this individual to fucking chill out. Like, you're being an asshole. You're being a racist asshole. Because that's all that this kind of language is rooted in. It's just racism. These people are garbage. We don't want them in our country. These people come from these people come from a country that is shit. I know he didn't say that it was shit, but of course he did refer to, several black and brown countries as shithole countries in his first term, so I'm sure that the subtext is already there. He called out a sitting congressperson and called her garbage. The only acceptable response to that is for Ilhan Omar to tell Donald Trump to shut the fuck up, you fat bitch. I don't understand how. I mean, I'm being facetious here. People who hear this type of language and they don't push back on it are pussy, straight up. I'm not gonna say that you're racist for not speaking out against this because you're not. You're just a pussy. But if you agree with this type of sentiment, you're racist because there's no other there's no other way for me to assess these statements. And I'm not the kind of person who's like everything is racist, although a lot of things in the United States are racist. But when it's this explicit, there's no plausible deniability. He was just going on a racist tangent for no reason. Oh my god, it's literally just straight out of like it's straight out of Alabama in the early 20th century. The straight dehumanizing of black people, of Muslims. It also is entirely void of any context, particularly the part where he says that Somalia is a shithole, basically. It is devoid of any context. Do you think that all of these countries that are unstable because like black people live there or because Muslims live there or because Hispanic people live there? In the eyes of Donald Trump, yes, because he's racist, and that is a racist view if you hold that, but they're destabilized explicitly because of Western intervention and specifically the U.S. The U.S. involving themselves in the affairs of these countries. Somalia has been bombed as recently as this decade. Okay? The military industrial complex and the White House is still drone striking this country. If you don't see how that plays a role, you need to open a fucking history book. You need to understand that these countries, more often than not, are unstable because of external factors. The only time a country can be internally unstable is when they are already a global superpower. The United States is an unstable country because of our inept leadership, because of the fucking the continued constriction of the population due to capitalism. But countries in the global south that are exploited by these nations are unstable because of the direct involvement from these nations. I'm not trying to sound like a fucking nerd here because I am, but that's just a little bit of context for why Somalia is so unstable. But even if the country is unstable, it doesn't mean that its citizens are lesser than. It doesn't mean that they're undesirable. It means that they're unlucky for having been born into that situation. It doesn't say anything about the collective population because there are a few bad actors sprinkled throughout it. White people never get that treatment. White people account for the majority of violent crime. White people account for white men in particular account for 98% of all serial killers, for example. But you don't see anybody casting a net on white men and thinking that they are all inherently violent or that they're going to fucking kill you. That is an example of systemic racism. When a race, a religion, a nationality is demonized based off of a small percentage of their population, particularly, black or brown people, white people don't face that same kind of stigma. They just don't. They simply do not. It does not happen in a white majority country explicitly because of racism. And let's not forget, the United States is a country founded on racism. It is an inherently racist country. Whether that be the drafting of the Constitution, the exclusion of civil liberties and civil rights to black people, brown people, women, all throughout history, Jim Crow, slavery. Even, dude, even fucking bridges are racist. And do you know how insane it is to say a statement like that? But I have proof because, as a Long Island resident, I'm well aware of Long Island's incredibly racist history. The de facto segregation that still exists, mind you, in the town that I grew up in. But for anyone who doesn't know, there was this guy, or this, I don't even want to call him a guy because I don't view him as a person. But Robert Moses was a prominent developer in downstate New York, particularly in the city and on Long Island. He was the main parkway guy throughout Long Island. He was really a transportation guy, but it was all car centric transportation. All of the parkways on Long Island, and also this is, I think, where things get a little bit different. On Long Island, you have two kinds of highways. I guess you have expressways and parkways. Parkways have low bridges on them, whereas the expressways either have no bridges or tall bridges, bridges enough to allow like truckers to drive through, buses, things of that nature. They're allowed to take the expressways, but not the parkways. Why are the parkways, why are there low bridges on the parkway? It's very simple, because Robert Moses wanted to prevent black and brown people from going to the beaches. This is not a joke. This is history. Black and brown people, when Long Island was being developed throughout, throughout the 30s, 40s, and 50s, would take buses from the city to get to the beaches, because obviously there are no beaches in Manhattan, and there are only a few beaches in Brooklyn and Queens. Long Island beaches, especially on the South Shore, are very large. They're massive. There is a lot of space, can accommodate a lot of people. Robert Moses did not want black and brown people taking the bus to the beaches. So he built all of these low bridges on the northern state, southern state, the Sag Parkway, explicitly to keep black and brown people out. Like, that is systemic racism. That is what systemic racism looks like. I know it's a tangent, but I'm just trying to highlight how foundationally racist the United States of America is. And when you have somebody like Donald Trump, who's 80 fucking years old, who has lived his entire life as a racist, most likely, it makes sense as to why someone can harbor such disgusting views towards a group of people for no reason. Even still, and I don't think I have to say this type of language is just flat out unacceptable. In my estimation, this is an impeachable offense, of which, of course, Donald Trump has many. But what makes it so insidious is that you are directly talking about a minority who lives in the United States of America. You are the president of the United States of America. You are supposed to govern the entirety of the country the same. Of course, Donald Trump doesn't think like that. He only gives a fuck about the people who voted for him, and even then, he really doesn't even give a fuck about that. He only cares about, the 1%. But you are otherizing an entire portion of the country, people who live in this country, people who, and I can't stress this enough, risked everything to come here. That part of immigration is not lost on me. I don't know, for some people, for some generations of immigrant descendants, which of course is virtually everybody in the United States, but I'm talking more so about like the second wave of immigration from Eastern and Southern Europe. And I'm only talking about this because anecdotally, like, that is my experience as a descendant of immigrants from that second wave. There's a reverence for these people, Italians, Greeks, Eastern Europeans, even like Northern Europeans, Germans, Irish. There's a reverence for these people who picked up their entire lives to go to a country that they knew nothing about. Immigration is a harrowing journey, regardless of where you come from. These people got on a fucking boat, didn't speak any English, didn't even know if they were going to make it to this goddamn country, all to try to better their lives. They viewed the United States as a beacon of hope, as a place where they could change their family lineage, where they wouldn't have to worry about economic issues, about political instability. They didn't have to worry about violence, didn't have to worry about any of that. And that is still a driving reason as to why people come here. They are fleeing instability. And it is disgusting that the president would only look to target these people. Uh, it's just sick, dude. It's so sick. I hope that maybe a fucking Democrat with some goddamn balls brings up articles of impeachment for this. I feel like it's worthy, but none of the fucking Democrats haven't done it yet. They haven't done it for fucking Doge. They haven't done it for the plethora of war crimes. If they haven't impeached Donald Trump for aiding and abetting a fucking genocide, I don't think that they're gonna attempt to impeach him for being racist.